Good morning, everyone. Let me cut my volume up. Good morning, everyone. Just so happy to have you all here. If you are here and you are feeling great this Sunday morning, I would love for you all to comment with an emoji of how you're feeling today. I know a lot of people, or like myself, are up and about to get started with their lesson plans and out for today. I know I have some plans to go to a couple of estate sales, so I'm really, really, really excited. But if you haven't already, I would like you all to go to My Adventures in ESL. There we have a blog. We also have a freebie, which is speaking books. So if you haven't been to that website, please, please, please go. Also, if you know somebody that can benefit from this video, it would be really, really great if you can share it in a group or share it with a friend or someone that you know would greatly benefit from the video. You can also watch it on replay. But today we are going to be discussing how to be more intentional and with your speaking in regards to getting their ELLs to talk in the classroom. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to give you some very actionable tips that you can use in your classroom that worked out well for me over the summer. So that's what I'd like to go ahead and get started for you today. Of course, I have my little notes. I'm trying to be over prepared so I can stay on track. But I wanted to let you all know, if this is your first time joining, my name is Millie. I am an ESL teacher. I'm a coach in the afternoon, meaning that like the first part of my day, I am teaching eighth graders this year in ELA, and in the afternoon, I am going out and I am coaching other teachers. And I'm also a curriculum writer for our curriculum in our district. And like I said, if you haven't already, go to the website, and I have some really, really cool things that I'd like to share with you on the website. And so our essential question for today is, are you being intentional with your speaking in your classroom? And I just wanted to share a story of what happened with me. It was one school year, and I was planning my butt off. I was like, you know what? I got all my lesson plans ready for the year. I have, I have all of my routines and procedures. I got my cute little planner book. Like, I'm ready for the school year. And the school year went really well. The students really grew with their reading. They grew with their writing. And then when I got their scores back, their speaking scores back at the end of the year, I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? I did all of this hard work, and their speaking scores are not good. Like, I mean, I did all of this work. And then I had like that teaching light bulb moment where you're like, oh, I did all the work. I did all the talking, not the students. The students didn't do the talking. So what I had to do was, I realized then that I had to go back to the drawing board. Like, I knew in that moment, like, okay, something's got to change. Like, I don't know what it is, but I know that something has to change. And upon reflecting back on the school year, I realized in that moment that as a teacher, I was not intentional with my speaking in regards to the activities that I was getting the students to do with their speaking, rather, wasn't intentional. I mean, I was the one up there doing all the talking, not the students. So in other words, when it came to their speaking activities, I, as the teacher, was doing the heavy lifting and not the students. And so that's when I realized in that moment that I needed to change. And so I'm going to walk you through right now some tips that I did, and some things that I did that really, really changed. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint right now and get started on that for you. The first thing that I did was, I had realized that I needed to figure out like what was wanted. Like, in other words, when they were going to do the end of the year assessment, what was expected of them. So I went to, like I said, we're a WIDA state, but honestly, you can use this rubric for whatever state that you're in, or if you're a state that has a different, I know they have TELPA or something like that. My first suggestion, which would suggest to you, is go look at the rubric. The rubrics are not student friendly. They are not student friendly at all. So, but I went through the rubric. Here are a few things that I noticed that I knew that I was not doing in my classroom. The first thing was discourse. The students were not having discussions. They weren't having, and when they were having discussions, they weren't connected. So I knew in that moment that they need to be having discourse level, high level discussions. And in those discussions, they needed to be, one, they need to be making connections. They need to be speaking in compound and complex sentences. They need to be using high academic vocabulary. And this is one that I realized that was so easy to do, everybody, that I was not doing in my classroom, and that I immediately changed was, are they speaking, what register are they speaking in? So for example, are they speaking casually or are they speaking formally? And so I realized, oh, that's something really simple and easy that I can do. Like, if we're in class, I can say, hey, imagine that you are talking to our principal right now. Would it be more formal or would it be casual? Or imagine that you are talking to a friend. I want you to use a casual register. Or I'll say, imagine that you're talking to me. What register should you be using? And so I immediately incorporated those small things in my classroom. I also noticed as well was that, are they making, like, I'm going back, were they making connections to the topic? Was it organized? And so that is one big push, is that, like, hey, you guys, now I'm here, you're having a conversation, make a connection to something that we've read. Can you make a connection to things that are going on in the world right now? And that, when I start seeing that, I start noticing a really, really, really big shift in their speaking. From this rubric, so over the summer, I was really diving deep into this rubric. I realized that it was not student friendly. Like, they needed something like a checklist or something to be looking for. Like, if I handed them this, like in this form right here, they'll be like, Miss Williams, what is this? So I then created a student friendly speaking rubric, a speaking checklist. And this is what it looks like, and I will put a link to it as well, but this is my student-friendly speaking rubric, and I'll go into like how I use it later on in the PowerPoint, or in the video, but this is how I broke it down, and it's like little checklists. So if we're like doing an activity, and sometimes I even say, like, hey, I want you to focus on the discussion part or the sentences part or the words and phrases part. But we use this when we're doing our activities. It can be something as simple as a turn and talk. I'm like, okay, so let's pull out this rubric and let's see how you are doing. Check off which ones that you did well with, or check off the ones that you did. And it's been working really great in my classroom. I have a rubric. It's in 6 different levels. So this is just one of the levels as an example. But let's say, for example, if they had a level, they came into my classroom on a level 3, then I bump it up they'll get a level 4 rubric. Or if they came in on a level 1, I give them a level 2 rubric. So the rubrics are varied, they're different. And it's been working out really, really great. One of the other things that I would like to share with you all, a tip that I use in my classroom, is a daily message. I do not read this daily message. The students, when they come in the room, they check in, they get their materials, they sit down, they do their bell ringer. After they do their bell ringer, or do now, depending on, wherever you are, people call it different things. They then do a daily message. And this is funny. When I first started doing these, I had these like in 6 different languages. I was like, what? I was spending like an hour on Google Translate trying to translate these into like 6 different languages. But finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to they're here to learn English, and I'm just going to have it in English. And this is with newcomers. So, and you can do this with newcomers, rather. I do this with my intermediate students right now. It worked great. I did it with newcomers last year. So how does this look like? When they come in after we get settled, I then put up a daily message. And in the daily message, I always have the day, the date, because they always ask me what is today. Um, then I go in the daily message. I tell them any announcements that we have. I put the daily objective in there. I put the language objective in there. I do any shout outs that we have as well. But I don't read it. I have the students read it. And then you see in here, I have questions like, do we have any birthdays in the month of January? And so we'll stop and they'll like, is there any birthdays in here? And we'll celebrate the birthdays. So they're the ones responsible for reading it. And then I know we're gonna have those people out there, and then they're gonna be like, "Well, you know what? What about my newcomers? They just got here. They can't read this." I'm gonna tell you that they can read it, and I'm gonna give you a quick tip of how they can read it. One, if I have a newcomer, I had newcomers, and I did this with them, and they read it. And one thing that I did was, if they're brand new, I would say, "Hey, I want you to repeat after me. I'm gonna say today is Monday, January 7th, 2019." And then they repeat after me. And then slowly over time, I say, okay, I need you to read the message. And then they'll be like, okay, you want to repeat after me? I'm like, no, I got it. Now, here's some scaffolds of support you can put in for the daily message to get them speaking. One, you can have a little bit more simpler sentences based on the rubric. Like this one is a little bit, because I have higher students this year, I have more compound, complex sentences, varied vocabulary in there. But you can have something, a really simple message for them to read. I also, if they want to read and then they can repeat after somebody else, like I mentioned as well, or as they're reading, if just have them read it. If they get stuck on the word, be like, okay, repeat after me. This is this word. So this is a great activity to kind of get them talking in the morning, get them going. It's really easy to do. And if anybody else out there have teacher observations, it's a great thing to do for teacher observations, just as a side note. Okay. Last week, this is the second thing. So right after the daily message, so I've already got them talking with the daily message. They're speaking with that one. Immediately after the daily message, we have target talk, and I talked about this last week. And this is an activity where the students discuss the learning objective and the language objective with their peers. And then afterwards, they rate themselves on the learning objective. And so this is a great activity for all of your students so they can understand, okay, why are we learning what we're learning today? I mean, it's a great activity, and I really suggest that you all try it out. Here's an example that I showed last week, and I did it last week. So I asked the students a question. What we went over, this is the learning objective. I could determine Roosevelt's point of view in his Day of Infamy speech, RI 8.6. So how this would look, one of them would read the learning objective, and then I would say to them, okay, you all, time for target talk. I need you all to turn and talk to a peer, and I need you all to explain, what does point of view mean? And so I give them a minute, and then they will turn and they'll talk about what is point of view. And then I will say, okay, I want you to turn and talk to your group again, and I want you to talk about how you can determine someone else's point of view. And then they'll turn and they'll talk to their group again about determining someone else's point of view. One, this takes the responsibility off as me as a teacher. I'm not doing the heavy lifting of going through this learning objective and explaining, today you are going to learn about Roosevelt. This is what point of view means. This is how you can determine someone else's point of view. I'm shifting the learning to them. And as a teacher and as an educator, if I'm walking around the room and I see like, oh, they're kind of they're not clear about what is a point of view, or then they don't know how to determine a point of view. And then I'll say, okay, and I'm walking around the room and I notice there's something I need to clear up about point of view. Right there is a great formative assessment that you can use for your classroom. A quick check for comprehension, like, oh, the students don't know what point of view is. Maybe I need to do a quick little mini lesson about point of view, or I may need to take a little extra time and explain what point of view is, or how to determine someone else's point of view, or give them an example. So this is a great little a pre-assessment that you can do with your students. So the next tip that I have, and this is what I do, so just to recap, for the morning message, so I've got them talking with morning message. when we do the target talk, I have them talking with the target talk. And then for our opening activity, our hook activity, I get them talking with the hook activity. Once again, it's student centered. This is one that I have quite a few that I do, but this is one of their favorites. And this is mix and mingle. And so with mix and mingle, I first have the students stand up and walk around the room. Like kind of like you're at a party. So I'm like, hey, imagine that you're at your friend's birthday party, you have cake, ice cream, you're mingling. Hey, how are you doing today? You're just walking around and you're talking. And as they're talking, I quietly call a number. I'll say 2, 3, 4, and whatever number I call, they get in that group. Once they get in that group, then I ask the class, I pose a question to the class and say, hey, this is a question. Talk about it in your group. And I have like little music playing too. So they're talking about it in their group. And then after they talk about it, I then have them share out. And then I'll say, okay, let's do it again. And then we'll walk around again. You can even do this with like a gallery walk. You can have them like soft music playing. They can walk around as a group, look at pictures of the gallery walk and discuss like, oh, what do you notice about the pictures? What do you wonder? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. Here's an example of one I did with my class. Well, here's an example of one that I'm going to do with my class this upcoming week. So I have the Mix and Mingle PowerPoint, and they're going to mingle and share the gist of each source. So this is going to look like I'm going to have a primary source up around the room. And for homework, they should have read the primary source, and the next day for our opening activity, they're going to come in and they're going to share, oh, okay, give me a brief summary of what this primary source is about. And some of the primary sources are a mixture of pictures and text. So this is one that we're going to be doing one for the upcoming week in my class. The next thing that I want to share with you all is FLIPGRID. I really wish I could share the videos, but of course, it's my students on there, so for privacy issues, I can't share their videos. But I want you all to go to flipgrid.com. It is a free website that you can use with your students, and it is simply amazing. The best way that I can describe it is like a Snapchat for your classroom. It's the best way I can describe it. So how does it look? One of the things that I do in FLIPGRID is I record a video. I'll just ask a simple question. You can do it on your phone. I mean, that's how easy it is. And I record a video. I ask them a question. The kids then respond to the question. So they'll log into their tablet or the computer or their phone. You can do it in your classroom the same way. And then they respond to the question by video as well. It is great. Like one of the things that I've done is like when I ask a question, you can even just type a question in. And then I put the question, upload it to FLIPGRID. And then when I upload it to FLIPGRID, then they go in and they respond by video. And it is just such great practice for them. You can even put in a rubric. Like if you have a rubric that you want, you can put in a rubric and you can respond with a video. I do that sometimes when they upload a video, then I'll do a quick video back to them. It's like we're just like talking by video. And the other classmates can see it. So you can group everybody in the class and then the classmates can see the videos. So recently I had one where I asked them to give a summary of chapter 19 of Unbroken. This is the text that we're reading. And then the students, they uploaded their summaries to FLIPGRID, and then their classmates then went in and listened to their summaries and then critiqued them using that speaking rubric that I showed you all earlier. It is a great activity. I mean, even if you're in a situation where you're limited with your technology, I know most middle schoolers, high schoolers, they have a phone, so it can possibly assign it for homework. Oh, and then get this. Like if you all want to share the videos, like their FLIPGRID videos with their parents, then you can just you can send the parents this a way on there that you can just click it and just send the parents the FLIPGRID video. I'm going to do a whole blog post about it, and I'll make sure to share that with you all, but it is just such a great activity to get them talking and practicing, and they love it. They even have like little emojis, like even on Snapchat where you have like the little bunny ears and all of that. So it's such a hit in the classroom. They love it. The next thing that I do is speaking anchor charts. Like I have anchor charts around the room. And you guys, this is one I use this week, so sorry for it being wrinkled. Um, but a lot of times it's I constantly. We're doing a lot of novel studies this year, and a lot of it requires them sharing their novel studies, sharing the gist, sharing a summary, and a lot of times, like the curriculum, they'll say, "Hey, I want you to read this, read chapter 19 to the class." This is for me as the teacher. And remember what I was saying? I'm like, I'm doing too much talking. Like, if I'm gonna sit here and read a whole chapter to them, I want to make sure that they're listening, that they're still engaged, and it's still interactive. So I created these speaking anchor charts that I put around the room. And so before, like, I'm gonna use this as an example. We're reading chapter 19 of Unbroken. So they want me as a teacher to read it aloud to them for fluency, so they can see what fluency sounds like. So I know if I was them that I probably would zone out. That's a lot to read. So I would put the anchor charts up around the room, and I would say, okay, I'm going to read from here to here. After I read, I want you to predict what do you think is going to happen next. And so I will have them turn and talk. You can even have them stand up and do the mix and mingle. You can just think, pair, share, and then so I'll have them say, okay, now after you do your think, pair, share, I want you to share using the anchor charts if they need them. Tell me what do you predict, and so they can say, after reading chapter 19, I can predict, Louis will be saved by the U.S. Navy or whatever. So this is a really, really great tool to use in your classroom. You can do it before reading. You can do I think. And I want to point out to you all, this year I have intermediate and advanced students. So going into this, I knew that. I was like, you know what? I don't want a simple I can predict. I mean, they need something higher up. I need them to be speaking like, okay, in these compound, complex sentences, I need them to be making connections. And so you see that these sentence frames are complex sentence frames, so for them to use. And they can even translate. I can't even see why they can't even use this with their writing. So it's a great tool. It was really quick. And I'm going to be honest, I did not create this. I had them brainstorm. I told, okay, I want you all to write down some. I'll just go ahead and put it up on a chart. And this is actually their work. They did this. They created this. So shout out to my 4th and 5th period class that did this. So the next activity. So I've given you one that used in the morning. I've given you one that you can use for your learning objective. We have talked about one that you can use for your opening activity. We have talked about a speaking activity that you can use during your lessons. I'm also going to share one that you can also use with your lessons, and you can use as a closing part of your lessons as well. And that is numbered heads. Some people call it all heads together, number heads together. It is a great activity. And this is one that I use with my students. Here's an example that I use with my students last 9 weeks, but we use them pretty often. And so this is how it looks. First, you have your students count off by the number of students you want in a group. So for example, if you want groups of 4, you have the students count off to 4, and then you repeat, okay? Then once the students count off, you have them group up together. So for example, if you have your students count off by the number of students you want in a group, so then I'll have like, okay, so all of the ones you put the students in a group and then have them count off. So they'll be in a group, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. And you will put them in your next group, you have them count off 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when you have them count off, you say, okay, I want everybody that was a number 2 in the group stand up. And then you have them stand up. Let me back up, I'm sorry. First, you ask the question. And then once you ask the question, then you have them discuss it within their group. So you ask the students the question, and then they discuss it. So once I ask the students the question, I have them discuss it in their group. And then once they discuss it in their group, then they put their heads together and they make sure everybody in the group has the same answer. So I tell them right then, like, hey, you guys, I want to make sure I don't want two people over here with one answer and two people in your group with a completely different answer. You all need to put your heads together and make sure everybody has the answer. And I want to share with you all, I have done this with a class full of newcomers, and it has worked wonderfully. I mean, they can do it. So you can ask them a question. You can put in scaffolds in place and supports in place for them. But the first time I did this was with newcomers, and it was amazing. So they put their heads together and they make sure everybody has the answer. You can put a timer up. I usually put up between 2 minutes, depending on the group, to give them some more time. And then I call the number. So I'll say, okay, everybody that has the number 2, stand up. And everybody in that group has the number 2 that stands up. In the class, and each group has number 2 stands up. And then I have them answer the question. And so I don't have them sit down. I mean, like, so if one group answers the question, then I can have them use the accountable talk frames, and they can be like, oh, I would like to add, or I disagree with this group because, and it is a really, really, really great way to get them talking. So just so I can go back, just to review, have the students count by the number of students you want in the group. So you go ahead and group the students by however you want them to be grouped. So you want a group of 4, you want a group of 5, put them in that group first. Then have them count off. So once everybody's in their group, have them count 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if you have an odd number, it may be 2 4s or 2 3s, however you want to do it. Yeah, odd number. Then you ask the students the question. Once you ask the students the question, then you have them put their heads together and make sure everyone in the group has the answer. Once they do that, then you call a number and all the students with that number stand. Teacher calls on one of the standing students to provide the answer, and also let them know just because one student has been called does not mean that the other students won't be called as well. And his number heads together, and it's a great activity. And here, like I said, if this is an example of one I did. Reread the speech. Where does Chisholm acknowledge the viewpoints? And then this is my speaking book. So I'll give you the link to the speaking books. I spoke about this last week. It is a great activity to do with your students. If basically, it's great if you have any kind of classroom reward system. And so this is how it looks. If the students are talking in compound complex sentences, if they're speaking confidently, if they're speaking from a different point of view, then I just simply check off what they're doing and I hand them the speaking books. It's just like cash. And I even have one here. So if you want to, like, I walk around with blank ones, and if they're speaking in a different register or the correct register that they need to speak with, or if they're making connections in the text, if they're using academic vocabulary, you can just fill it out and then just hand it to the students. One of the things that kind of came up with someone asked, and which was a great question as well, how do they keep up with it? Like, is it a lot to keep up with? And I did make clear, it's like one of the expectations that I have for the students is this is just like cash. Like, if you lose it, you lose it. Do not ask me for another one. And I'm very, very strict about that. I'm like, if you lose $20, do you go to the bank and ask them, hey, I lost my $20. Can I have another? No, it does not does not work like that. So it's up to them. What I would suggest is, if you want to, give them like a little small envelope, if depending on your grade level, give them a small envelope and they can just put it in there. But I have been doing this for a while, and for the most part, no one has lost it that I'm aware of. Now, on our end as a teacher, like, how do I keep up with it? Well, one of the things that I do is, when I get it, I immediately put it into the system. If I'm in a situation where I can't, I have like a little bucket. I tell them to write their names on it. And if they don't have their names on it, then they just won't get it. I tell them to write their name somewhere on it. And at the end of the day, then I just quickly put them into the system for them. So they're pretty responsible about holding on to them. So just putting that expectation in place is really helping them keep up with it. And here we have accountable talk frames. This is what I was speaking with you all about earlier. That's included. This is great on colored paper. If you want to put it on colored paper, print it out. You want to give each student their own to have. It's really great to have. And they use it. They use it. It'll be great to use with that number of heads activity. It'll be great to use with any of the speaking activities that you have. So let me switch over. So I'm back. So I want to just thank you all so much for coming. Like, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can put them in the comments. I don't see any right now, maybe because I'm still getting kind of used to this. But I wanted to share with you all a couple of things. If you haven't already, please share this video with someone that you all know. It is so I don't want it to be like when I didn't realize that, you know what, I do need to be extremely intentional with my speaking. We went over some really cool activities that you all can use in your classroom. One is target talk that you can use. One is speaking. You can use speaking bucks to reward the students for their speaking. We talked about mix and mingle. I mean, mix and mingle is a great activity that you all can use in the morning part of your lessons. You can use it in any part of your lessons. FLIPGRID. FLIPGRID is such a great tool. So if you have not gone to FLIPGRID to check out FLIPGRID, please do. I know a lot of ESL teachers use VoiceThread as a great tool as well, but I love FLIPGRID. Like I said, it's just like a Snapchat for your classroom. Speaking frames, and I would suggest, like, if you have speaking frames, have the students create the speaking frames and speaking bucks. But if you haven't already, I would highly suggest that you all go to My Adventures in ESL. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments and I would definitely get back to you all. But I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today and joining me today. Like I said, share the video, go to the website, and I just want you all to make sure, if you haven't, follow me on Facebook. Next week, I'm going to be talking more in detail about a specific speaking activity that I use in my classroom. And so mark your calendars for that. So once again, thank you all for joining me. My name is Millie, and it was a pleasure, and I will see you all next week. Bye.